Please come back to your seats. Dear friends from the media, good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference for the first session of the 13th National People's Congress. Today's press conference will talk about how to win the battle of poverty alleviation through a targeted approach. Today we are very honored to have with us Mr. Liu Wengfu, Director of the State Council Leading Group Office of Poverty Alleviation and Development, to answer your questions on this particular topic. Now, some opening remarks from Mr. Liu. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to meet the friends from the press. You may know that at the 18th CPC National Congress, it was proposed that we have to control major risks and achieve the battle against poverty alleviation through a targeted approach and prevent pollution. Earlier this year, President Xi Jinping visited Sichuan province. He visited Liangshan and some impoverished localities to conduct inspections into the circumstances of the local people. In Sichuan and in Chengdu City, Sichuan province, he chaired a conference on how to win the battle against poverty alleviation through a targeted approach. President Xi summarized the experience of our achievements since the 18th National Congress and made important arrangements for the implementation of poverty alleviation since the 19th National Congress. At the opening session of the two sessions on March the 5th, Premier Li Keqiang also made important arrangements and remarks regarding how to conduct the work on the above-mentioned three fronts. This is an issue that has drawn attention from all walks of life. People from the society, including journalists in the room, have been involved in this important work of poverty alleviation. On behalf of the State Council Leading Group Office of Poverty Alleviation and Development, I would like to pay my tribute and say thank you to all of you. Now, I would like to take your questions on poverty alleviation and the relevant issues. Thank you. Thank you, Director Liu. Now the floor is open for questions.
那么我想请问，对于这一判断，您是能不能跟我们多说一些？那么第二点就是2018年怎样巩固前期脱贫工作取得的成绩，那么完成政府划定的脱贫目标？谢谢。
With China Daily, the government work report says that decisive progress in poverty alleviation has been achieved in the last 5 years. Could you elaborate on this judgment? And in 2018, what will be done to lock in the results of previous years and to fulfill the goals for this year?
Since the 18th CPC National Congress, we have embarked on a 5-year journey on poverty alleviation. In 2015, we launched our battle against poverty alleviation, and it's been 2 years since the launch of the work. So what have we achieved in the past several years, and what problems do we face? What are we going to do going forward? So these are highly important questions of your concern, and I'm ready to take your questions. According to the leadership of President Xi Jinping, we have been working very hard to fight against poverty, and important achievements have been made along the way. There are some important indicators. Specifically, First, in the history of poverty alleviation in China, we have achieved the best results. In 2015, we had 99.98 million people living in poverty. By the end of 2017, it has been reduced to 34 million. So in 5 years, we have reduced people living in poverty by 65 million. It's around 10 million per year. By 2020, we will continue to reduce poverty by 7 million. So there are different standards in gauging the achievements. However, the results have been doubled every year. From 1986, when we set the poverty standard, to the end of 2012, we had 832 poor villages and counties. In 2017, we will continue to reduce poor villages and counties by around 200. That is to say, we have reduced poor villages and counties by 150. Of course, as the standards increase, there will be more poor villages and counties. In 2016, the total number of poor villages and counties have been reduced for the first time. The income of people living in rural areas has also increased significantly, more than 2.5 percentage points than the national average. So this is quite unprecedented. Secondly, we have accelerated the development in the impoverished regions. Through important inputs and commitments, we have improved infrastructure and public services in the poor regions. Living standards and production conditions in the poor regions have also significantly improved. In addition, through increasing the income of the people in the local regions, we have promoted the development of the distinct industries and sectors in these poor regions. Moreover, through planned migration, forestry planning, and other efforts, we have significantly improved the ecological conditions in these regions. Thirdly, we have fostered synergy across the society to fight against poverty. Fourthly, we have carved out a new approach to fight against poverty with Chinese characteristics. So these are the important highlights of our poverty alleviation work, and this testifies to the decisions and the correct arrangements of the State Council and the central government, which are based on the national circumstances of the country. So these are what we have done in the past. You also asked about the future work. Actually, important arrangements have been made in the 19th CPC National Congress and in the work report on the government this year. There are also important plans. So based on experiences, we will continue to stick to the objectives and principles. We will remain committed to the institutional arrangements in fighting against poverty. We will stick to the targeted approach to poverty alleviation. And based on these important principles and purposes, we will improve the institutions and mechanisms and policies and revamp the relevant regions. We will also shift our style of work and enhance the training for relevant professionals and local people. And these will make sure that the battle against poverty will be won. We will not only secure a victory, but also secure a decisive and a good victory, and we have confidence in this victory. Thank you.
My question is, some of the poverty reduction has been due to international collaboration, also exports being sold from poorer regions such as Guizhou. So in relation to this, to what extent do you think that the Belt and Road Initiative can or should be combined with poverty alleviation? Could China's anti-poverty efforts have a global reach? Thank you very much.
谢谢。我想请问，我们的精准扶贫很多时候是通过国际合作来实现的。我的问题就是，您认为“一带一路”的建设能否和我们的扶贫努力相结合，通过这样的合作来促进更广泛地区之内的扶贫工作？谢谢。
这个是可以集合的。“一带一路”是这个促进。
Yes, they can be integrated. The Belt and Road Initiative is to promote the world, the relevant countries in the world to develop in a common prospect. Through this initiative, we can promote the international economic and social development. As we all know, in the developed countries, employment and social security, social welfare are the priority to lift out the poverty. Especially in developing countries, we should rely on development and also the poverty alleviation system and mechanisms. In this regard, the Belt and Road Initiative can promote different countries' economic growth and can benefit the poverty alleviation. Against this backdrop, we will conduct cooperation in the poverty alleviation. Thank you.
“谢谢主持人，我是四川广播电视台和四川观察的记者。我的问题是，深度贫困地区脱贫是脱贫攻坚战的尖中之尖，中央已经做出了相关的政策部署。习近平总书记在今年春节前到四川凉山州调研了深度贫困问题，还在成都主持召开了打好精准脱贫攻坚战座谈会。那么我想请问一下，下一步中央对深度贫困地区的脱贫攻坚工作有什么具体的安排和部署呢？谢谢。
As Sichuan Broadcasting and Television, we know that the areas of extreme poverty are the most challenging part in the fight against poverty. The Central Committee of the CPC and central government have released relevant documents on poverty alleviation, and General Secretary Xi Jinping visited the Liangshan Prefecture in Sichuan Province before the Spring Festival to study the extreme poverty problems there and chaired a conference on poverty alleviation in Chengdu. My question is, does the central government have specific plans for tackling extreme poverty moving forward? Thank you.
Winning the battle against poverty has a very important area of work, that is poverty in extreme poverty areas. That's why President Xi Jinping has visited Liangshan Prefecture and had made important arrangements for our work. Thanks to the efforts in the relevant areas in these years, many important achievements have been made. However, one concern is that we have to leave no one behind in the poverty alleviation work, and the key lies in extreme poverty areas. I have some statistics for you. By the end of last year, In China, in areas of extreme poverty, poverty incidence above 18% numbered 110, and incidents above 20% numbered over 16,000 across the country. In Shanxi province, President Xi Jinping chaired a conference on how to fight poverty in those extreme poverty areas. And we identified some extreme poverty areas. Altogether, there are 334 extreme poverty counties. In these 334 extreme poverty regions, the poverty incidence rate is 11%. Across the country, the incidence rate is 3.1%. So in these regions, you can see the number is as high as 11%. So for these regions, we still have to step up our work and increase our input and fight against poverty through a decisive way. Based on the arrangements of the Central Committee and Central Government, for Tibet, Xinjiang, and those Tibetan ethnic regions, Liangshan Prefecture in Sichuan Province, Linxia in Gansu Province, and Luxian in Yunnan Province. These are designated as national level extreme poverty areas, and the special support will be extended to these regions among the 334 regions and over 16,000 counties. Different governments at different levels have to increase their input and support to these regions. For one thing, we have to set a timetable or roadmap for poverty alleviation, including specific measures and projects. By the end of last year, and this work has basically been completed. Secondly, the central government and the subnational governments, particularly provincial governments, have to step up support. For instance, the eastern region has to support western region, particularly impoverished regions. Newly increased financial resources have to be put into these extreme poverty areas and regions. Besides, we have to improve our monitoring of the poverty situations. For those regions where poverty incidence is above 18% or 20%, we have to improve monitoring at different levels to identify the weak links of our work. For those regions where the poverty alleviation is likely to be not completed, we have to strengthen our work.
With Guoming Daily, at the 12th February meeting chaired by General Secretary Xi Jinping, he said that we should win the battle against poverty with flying colors. In the past, we see the wording was win the battle against poverty. What significance do you see in the addition of the phrase with flying colors? And he raised 8 points at the meeting. Among them, which one do you think is the most challenging to implement?
For this question, to better win or just to win the battle against poverty alleviation has different meanings. To win the battle with the flying colors has more content. To win it, just to accomplish the task. The task is by the year of 2020, under the current standards, all the impoverished people should be lifted out of poverty, and to eradicate the extreme and direct poverty situation in China's history, and all the poverty-stricken prefectures should be lifted out of poverty, and the regional poverty should also be removed. Just now I said, as this progress is going on, during the past 5 years, we have reduced 2/3 of the impoverished people. The poverty-stricken counties are left for 681, and this year we will lift 200 of them out of poverty, and we will leave 350 counties. So this won't be a big problem in future. But we need to win the battle with flying colors. What does this mean? First, we should comprehensively accomplish this task. We won't leave behind any person nor any county. We won't leave any dead corner. And second, for this poverty eradication, we need to focus on the quality, which can be examined by the time and history. There can be no fraud. There can be no number poverty alleviation. We need to guarantee the quality. Third, not only win the battle against poverty, after 2020, we will continue to conduct work on the poverty alleviation and to relieve the relatively poor areas. We mean by the year of 2020, we will remove the extremely and relatively poor areas, but there will still be poorer areas, and we will continue working on this and learn from the past experiences in order to establish a better mechanism to make the poverty alleviation sustainable. Your second question mentioned the 8 points initiated by President Xi. I think all of them are very important and difficult. We need to take it carefully. Like the first one, that's to enhance the institutional leadership. We need to further enhance it. We need to expand the poverty alleviation space. We have the chief designer, that's the President Xi. He conducted the site visit, and he's also involved in the process. This time, in the meeting chaired by President Xi in Chengdu, President Xi and the leaders from provincial and city level gathered to discuss how to win the targeted poverty alleviation. We must uphold the leadership of the CPC Central Committee. This is the basis. Under the leadership of President Xi, we are convinced we can win this battle. And also, we need to focus on the extremely impoverished region. Also, at the grassroots level, the work of the Central Committee should abide by the regulation, also to enhance their capability and improve their ideological mindset. And for the impoverished people, they should be benefited from this. They should also contribute to this poverty alleviation process. Above all, for these 8 points, each one is very significant. We should turn these points into pragmatic practices. And from the top-level design, we should work hard, and we should prevent risks in the middle level. And in the end, in the final 1 kilometer, we should also keep working hard. Thank you.
我是来自中国国际广播电台和国际在线的记者。李克强总理呢，在前2天的这个政府工作报告中提到，5年以来呢，我们国家的脱贫攻坚工作取得了决定性的进展。其中呢，李克强总理专门提到了一个数字，就是在这过程当中，我们实现了有超过800万人口的这个异地的扶贫搬迁。可以说，这个异地扶贫搬迁呢，也是成为了降低我们国家这个贫困发生率的一个有效手段之一。我想请问刘永福主任，在这个过程当中，就是扶贫搬迁的过程当中，怎么样去化解这个成本比较高的问题？另外，在后续扶持还有这个防止返贫的问题上，怎么做到平衡？谢谢。
I'm a CRI. In the government work report, Premier Li said that decisive progress has been made in poverty alleviation in the last 5 years. And he mentioned one specific figure, which is that 8 million plus people were relocated from inhospitable areas. Relocation has proved to be an effective means to reduce headcount ratio. So my question is, how do you think should we cope with the issue of heavy cost of relocation, and what should be done to ensure that follow-up support can be sustained and we can prevent the relapse into poverty again? Thank you.
这个问题重要，大家都很关心。看昨天，国家发改委。
Well, this is a very important question, which has drawn widespread attention. At the NDRC press conference, this question was also raised, and I'm ready to take this question as well, because this is very important. Well, the government decided that during the 13th five-year plan period, we have to achieve 10 million people who will be qualified for relocation, and in the implementation process, there will be a certain number of people who will be relocated as well. So the number will be much more than 10 million. It is a massive project. This is a very hard nut to crack, and it involves huge numbers of people, and the project is absolutely enormous in terms of the input. For relocation in the poverty alleviation context, that means we will relocate those people living in hospital regions into a different region or locality. Because living in these hospital regions where the conditions are very harsh, where water is scarce and the soil conditions are very bad, poverty alleviation would be futile. That's why we must relocate these people to a different region. More often than not, there will only be 10 or 20 households in these regions, and if you have to build roads and transport network, and the cost would be very high. In some regions, the ecological system is very fragile, and the living in these regions also threatens the local environment. That's why relocation is a very complex process. You have to choose the correct site where to relocate these people to, and you have to consider the willingness of these people, whether they are ready to relocate. In terms of the cost of relocation, the cost is indeed very high. So the per capita cost is around 60,000 RMB yuan. However, compared with the conditions and circumstances, I think this is a reasonable price to pay. Otherwise, we shouldn't call it a battle against poverty. If these people live in these regions forever, they would be living in extreme poverty forever. So the cost is a fair price to pay. The key in this process, after relocation, we have to make sure that people can settle down properly in these regions. We have to properly deal with their life after relocation. Without proper post-relocation support, this wouldn't be sustainable. It would be just a change of location. So you have to make sure that there are relevant industries and businesses to be done in these relocated regions. That's why we have to support the development of industries in these regions. So for the 60,000 RMB yuan support, some would be used for housing, and another important part would be used for the development of relevant industries. So the work in this region is progressing smoothly, and we have the support of the relocated people. And most of them have already been lifted out of poverty after the relocation process.
我是湖北广播电视台的记者。今年的政府工作报告中就提到呢，要激发脱贫的内生动力。那么，其实围绕这个问题啊，在各地都已经进行了许多积极的探索。比如我所在的湖北，现在呢正在进行的一件事情，就是来通过市民的下乡、能人的回乡以及企业新乡这样的3项工程，来促进包括资本、技术、人才等等这样的要素流向农村。那我想请问刘主任，咱们扶贫办在今年的工作中，围绕这个激发脱贫的内生动力上，会有什么样的一些举措吗？在这其中还有什么样的一些难点是需要攻坚的吗？谢谢。
With Hubei TV, the government work report this year vows to invigorate self-generated impetus to alleviate poverty. And actually, the local governments have made positive attempts in the past years. For example, in my province, Hubei, we have rolled out a scheme to attract funding, technology, and talent back into the rural areas. My question is, will your office take new measures this year in this regard, and what do you think are the challenges in this front? Thank you.
这个也是当前非常热的一个话题，也是我们下一步要加强的一项工作。这个贫困的原因呢，非常的多，有千百年来。
This question is also a hotspot issue, and it's also the next step we should be focused on. The poverty has its thousands of history, and there are multiple reasons, like the inconvenient transport and the language barrier, and so on. The existed impoverished people also lack inner power. The existence will bring some consciousness. This doesn't mean the impoverished people are lazy or are foolish. Due to the extreme weather and lack of transportation in history, they are not guaranteed. They have no access to public resources. They couldn't share the public resources and the development results with other people. Due to the long-term poverty, they are afraid to imagine for future, and they are used to poverty. In this regard, we are working on the poverty alleviation. For different levels of regions or governments, they have good experiences. We will publicize these experiences. You and me are from the same province. Every provinces have their good experiences for others to draw from. And next, we will continue working hard. Our society should also be patient, and because the impoverished people are transforming, they are positively improving themselves, and they are also hoping for a better life. They are hoping to be respected and win dignity. So for the next, we will guide them from the perspective of policy, and we will improve their consciousness in order to prevent laziness. And next, we will conduct trainings and educational programs that's mainly for ideological education to transform their mindset in order to improve their techniques and skills, so that they can also engage in the poverty alleviation. On the other hand, you mentioned the typical guidance. We should set good examples and absorb the experiences from the better places in order to transform the ideological people living in the mountains. And they are afraid of going down because they've been used to their life. And they love their hometown due to generations living. And they are reluctant to go out from the mountain area. We are working hard to let them go out from the mountain area and go to the cities. And we should also help them eradicate the outdated formalities. On this process, we will guide them continuously. Like there are several commissions in the villages to supervise the luxury consumption. And these commissions are self-governed by the villagers. They should also conduct self-education. And through these commissions, we will have a good guidance to those villagers. Thank you.
但是我们在采访中也发现，就是有一些基层的扶贫的干部，就是作风不实，包括搞这个数字脱贫、虚假脱贫。请问您怎么看待这样的现象？下一步您将如何加大监督监管，确保我们的扶贫工作真正的公正客观？谢谢您。
With CCTV, we have been saying this, that we have achieved decisive progress in poverty alleviation, but reports on misconduct of some officials at lower level governments, manipulation of numbers, and fake results continue. And how do you look at this phenomena? And in the next step, what measures will be taken to strengthen supervision and oversight in order to make sure that poverty alleviation efforts can deliver benefits to all people equally?
这个趋势啊，包括我们中央机关、省市机关，当然有你说的
It is true that not only at local levels, but also at some central and provincial level governments, including grassroots levels, there are misconduct involved in the poverty alleviation process. I would like to say a few things. Indeed, this misconduct exists. Secondly, in our poverty alleviation process, the work is conducted in those least developed regions where talents have moved out of the rural areas into cities. So it's a very difficult job. And there are many pronounced problems and challenges. Thirdly, at the local level, the conduct of government officials is generally upright and good. We have lifted over 68 million people out of poverty, and this is because of the leadership of the General Secretary and also the government agencies and people from all walks of life. Ultimately, it boils down to the local officials who have indeed conducted very practical work. Let me share with you some figures. Since the launch of the poverty alleviation work, over 400 local level government officials have given their life to the work of poverty alleviation at the front line. So they have paid a dear price with their life in fighting against poverty. So we have to acknowledge their contribution. However, because of the weak foundation at the local level and the existence of some misconduct at the grassroots level in implementing the poverty alleviation work, there will be some problems. And we have indeed identified some problems. We have been trying very hard to redress the problem. Generally speaking, the trend is good, but admittedly, there are some problems we have to deal with. So in this process, we have to secure a decisive battle against poverty alleviation, including correcting some misconduct, deal with the falsification of numbers, manipulation of poverty alleviation statistics, and corruption. We will absolutely deal with this and punish these people. Since the launch of the poverty alleviation work, we have investigated and dealt with a lot of cases numbering over 60,000, involving over 80,000 people. So we will give credit to those who have achieved great important work. We will identify and redress the problems. For those who have involved in misconduct and manipulation of numbers, we will also re-educate them, we will guide them, and we will be very resolute in punishing those misbehaved officials. Thank you.
您怎么看这么一个数字？为什么会出现这么严重的问题？有没有一些制度的措施能够让这个扶贫资金使用的更高效、到位、及时？谢谢。
With Southern Metropolis, by the end of last year, a total of 730 million RMB have been embezzled or misused in other ways. How do you look at this figure, and why are these funds misused to such a great extent? What institutional measures will be in place to ensure that these funds are used more effectively and as intended?
这个扶贫的物质基础就是钱，钱必须要管好用。
The material basis of poverty alleviation lies in money, and we need to manage it well. In the past, there is a lack of money, and since the battle against poverty alleviation, President Xi required we should improve the conditions of poverty alleviation. So in recent years, we have added up in the capital and fund for poverty alleviation. We had a fiscal fund in the year of 2012. it was less than 50 billion yuan. And last year, it totaled more than 200 billion yuan. So in total, it's 300 billion yuan. We have a huge amount of poverty alleviation fund. And the second, the fund is issued from the central committee to prefecture level to villages. As we have hundreds of poverty-stricken counties and hundreds of thousands of impoverished villages, this is very extensive. So the fund issuing process should be complicated, and there will be problems lying. There were misappropriations or fraud or embezzling of the money. In the past, the Central Committee set very strict requirements on this. According to the projects and programs, the distribution of the fund was very strict, which showed the low efficiency. And now we did some reform. We delegated the power to counties, and the fund from the Central Committee, after the approval of the National People's Congress, within 1 month, it can be released to the province, and within another 1 month, it can be released to the counties. And there will be another problem. At the local level, the grassroots level, some people are afraid of using money, and they don't know how to use the money in a better way. So we are working on strengthening and issuing new policies. First, we give the fund, and then we should help manage and serve them in terms of using the fund. Our next step is to, firstly, expose the fiscal revenue to the public in terms of Central Committee, provinces, and county level. And also, for the villages, the Fund for Poverty Alleviation and the projects will be exposed and will receive the supervision from the society. This will be a systematic mechanism. The poverty alleviation projects will be exposed to public and receive social supervision. So people who are conducting fraud or misappropriations of the fund will be supervised. We changed to this system in order to further complete the system above prefecture level, and we set up database of poverty alleviation, which identifies the items of the poverty projects. And the projects will wait for the fund, but not vice versa. And this also helps solve the problems from the local levels for who are there, who are afraid of using money in the right way. And also, this process will receive the supervision from the public and the society. Even if we've initiated this, there are still some people who conduct frauding management or use the money in the wrong way. But we are very strict on this. We hope you can help oversight. On the other hand, not only cannot misuse this fund, we need to use it in a good way. So next, we will organize 3 third-party organizations to oversee the efficiency of this process, to supervise the efficiency of the fund. We will have a performance system and to further complete this system. Thank you.
广播电视台的记者。那么在我们国家，包括内蒙古在内的老少边穷地区呢，贫困人口相对比较多，贫困的程度呢也相对比较深。这其中呢有一些是集中连片特困地区，这些地区呢现在有这样一种现象：老百姓刚刚脱贫，但是呢遇到一场自然灾害，得一场病，马上就又返贫了。想巩固我们的这个脱贫攻坚的成果，并不是一件非常容易的事情。那么，除了各地区自身的努力之外，国家在制定政策、投放资金的时候，对这部分地区会不会有所侧重呢？谢谢。
With Inner Mongolia TV, in our country, the poor population tends to concentrate in old revolutionary base areas, areas with large ethnic minority populations, and border areas, like Inner Mongolia. And these areas are sometimes contiguous with extreme poverty. An illness or natural disaster could easily throw those lifted out of poverty back into it. It is not easy to lock in the results of poverty alleviation. The local governments, of course, should make their own efforts, but does the central government have any priorities given to these areas, for example, in terms of funding? Thank you.
在一些集中连片地区啊，
Well, in these regions where poverty is contiguous because of the natural conditions and the topography, poverty is indeed very serious. It is fair to say that we have a well-established natural disaster response system. When natural disasters happen, people will pour in with their assistance. So, and the most important thing is to ensure the quality of poverty alleviation. To make sure that people will not relapse into poverty, it is important first to improve the local conditions on the one hand, and on the other hand, make sure that people can have access to public services. At the same time, we have to try to change the mindsets of the local people. And we have to look at the local conditions where people have established stable sources of income. If so, they are well prepared to fight against natural disasters and restore the production and life and make sure that the poverty alleviation results can be locked in. In regions where people relapse into poverty, actually poverty alleviation is not genuinely achieved. So we have to step up our assistance. We have to consolidate the results of poverty alleviation, locking the quality of poverty alleviation, and bringing the financial resources from both the provincial and local level, improve transfer subsidies. For instance, in this year, we have increased 20 billion in poverty relief funding, which will be mainly used in these extreme poverty areas. And in border areas, ethnic minority regions, greater support is being given to fight against poverty. Thank you.
从这个省际间交叉考核到第三方考核评估，到今年新增加的这个媒体暗访督查环节，我们的感觉是这个考核评估越来越严。 那么今年您预计考核评估是否是按照这个趋势更加的严下去呢？那这样一个考核评估的背后，对于脱贫攻坚有什么样的深意和推进作用呢？谢谢。
With the Xinhua News Agency, I have a question on third-party evaluation. We have seen that the evaluation of poverty alleviation results is getting more and more strict. We had auditing at first and then third-party evaluation. Then we have the secret surveys by the media. So we have seen this trend going on. And my question is, will this trend continue this year? And what is the significance of such strict moves for poverty alleviation? Thank you.
To conduct the most strict assessment system is one of the typical priorities of this time's poverty alleviation, and it's also the requirement from President Xi. So this time, the evaluation is not simply cited inspection from the Central Committee of CPC. This time's assessment specially required the efficiency of the poverty alleviation from provincial level. And it's a very completed system. It's also strict. The requirements are strict. Just like you mentioned, we have the cross-provincial auditing and inspection, which includes 22 provinces. They inspect each other and identify problems and also draw lessons from each other. This contributes to the work. And we also have the third-party evaluation system. We have generated more than 1,000 experts and scholars, also doctors and masters and professors have been involved. And this year, we added the secret visiting and also auditing on finance. This series of inspection integrated with the previous inspections and assessment. And currently, the assessment is a new policy, and we are gradually completing it. And to make it better developed, last year, during the assessment, we found some fraud and misconduct. This year, we just concluded a one-site tour. We see the reduction on these problems. After a series of assessment, we still don't require the localities to submit a form which will add to their burden. We witnessed a sound and a steady assessment process. While mentioning the strict assessment, especially how to utilize the results, this help promote the implementation and help improve the sense of responsibility. The assessment will examine the work and whether it is targeted or not. And also, during the whole process, it will be supervised by this assessment. Last year, we assessed 22 provinces, among which 90 provinces got 90% satisfaction from the people. So we can see the acknowledgement and recognition from the people. And the results of the assessment also require the leaders from the provincial level and the central committee, because this will be the database. And for the provinces who top the list, we will report them and appraise them, and also to give them awards. For the provinces who have problems, we will discuss with them, discuss with the leaders from the province. This means their burden. In some places, the leaders from the county mentioned they vow to work hard to alleviate the poverty, and we can see this time we really have a very strict assessment which contribute to this poverty alleviation, and next we will continue to make it strict.
我是香港阳光杂志社和瞭望中国杂志社记者。我有一个问题，就是说，有很多一些民众他们会因病致贫，请问这方面有哪些新的举措？谢谢。
With Outlook China in Hong Kong, we see that some people are elapsed into poverty because of illness. My question is, what new measures will be taken this year to address this problem? Thank you.
这个我刚还得补充一句啊，
Let me add a few words about oversight and evaluation. Well, evaluation is an important part of implementation of the spirits of the 19th CPC National Congress, which concerns the strict discipline of the party. By doing so, we are acting in accordance with the requirements for the strict governance of the party and implement the relevant requirements across the board in fighting against poverty. Talking about illness-induced poverty, extreme poverty is caused by two reasons. One is the fact that in those extreme poverty prefectures, counties, and villages, poverty situation is very serious. Secondly, illness-induced poverty. Well, illness-induced poverty is a global issue, not only in developing countries but also in developed countries. Developed countries have spent a lot of efforts in addressing this problem. In registering these poor people, over 40% of them are in poverty because of illness. So since the launch of the register for these poor people, the figure has remained stable. So this is a very important part of our work. So given the available medical resources and policies, we will utilize medical insurance and other channels to help these people suffering from illness and poverty. And the National Family Planning and Reform Commission is also working on this particular front. And most of the illnesses are curable. For chronic illness, the village health centers and clinics will help address the illnesses and problems, for instance, flu and coughing. For major illness, relevant policies are also put into place. Last year, important investments have been made. For major consequential illnesses, we have provided treatment to over 4.2 million people. For those who are included in the register of the poverty data bank, the medical reimbursement threshold has also been raised. Over 80% of the expenses would be reimbursed. The medical reimbursement ratio has been raised above 20%. Last year, on the illness-induced poverty front, many financial resources have been put into place, including private funding, fiscal budget, and a lot of other resources. Moving forward, we will continue to improve the system of medical assistance to prevent major illnesses and help shape behaviors and lifestyles. Thank you.
中国经济网、经济日报客户端的记者，我的问题呢是关于金融扶贫的。那我们知道，其实金融扶贫现在在扶贫中是越来越重要的地位。那么想请问您，金融扶贫现在存在哪些的瓶颈和短板？那么今年在金融扶贫方面有哪些工作和部署，以及希望金融机构和金融监管部门如何更好地做好金融扶贫做出努力？谢谢。
With Economic Daily, we all know that poverty alleviation through financial development is part and parcel to the whole poverty alleviation strategy. And my question is, what are the existing bottlenecks and short planks in this field? And will there be specific plans this year for strengthening the role of poverty alleviation through financial development? And how can the financial institutions play a better role in this field? Thank you.
这个农村呐，农民贷款难，贷款贵，享受到的金融服务比较少，农业保险大家希望做。
In the villages, it's difficult for the farmers to receive loans, and the financial services they enjoyed are very few. So there are large space for the financial institutions to play a role. These are traditional problems. And since the battle against the poverty alleviation, we conducted the poverty alleviation through financial development, and this has ushering a new stage. And it's also the highlights of the poverty alleviation. In the past, we mainly used the central fund, and now we have capital from the society. There are three products from this process. The first, the registered impoverished household. During their business, they can lend loans with the lower interest. And there are other favorable mechanisms and systems for the loan. Last year, after 3 years' efforts, since 2014, we've released 430 billion yuan for the over 11 million registered impoverished households. So there are about 33% of the registered households have enjoyed these favorable loans. And second, the Bank of the People also initiated a reciprocity fund and a loan to drive the process of poverty alleviation. In terms of the projects, for people to apply for it, and it's totaled 160 billion yuan. And for the guarantee and the mortgage, there are also favorable conditions to the impoverished people. And just now we also mentioned relocation. The fiscal revenue invested 250 billion RMB, and the National Development Bank and the Rural Development Bank issued over 350 billion yuan in order to support the government. But this money from the banks should be returned. So we should also prevent the risks. For this small amount of loan, the requirement is to make a living, but not for life. And we will continue exploring in order to standardize this loan process, in order also to prevent the financial risks and bad debt. Next, the financial institutions will continue to play its role. We will continue to uphold the spirit from the Central Committee of the CPC and prevent risks, especially for those who are discussed to engage in this process. We will reverse the situation and we will supervise them.
关于这个生态扶贫的问题，而且呢，我们也有良好的实践，就是我们通过这个生态扶贫的这一块我们搞了一个观讲生态论坛，请了一帮专家，就怎么样从生态这个方面的扶贫，大家来出谋划策，有一个良好的实践。但是呢，我们同时在实践当中也看到生态扶贫跟这个拿现金这个治标治本的这个问题之间实际上还是有一定的距离的，就是还是有一定的心理距离，还有一定的这个积极性的差异那么就是说，在我们认为呢，生态扶贫这一块是治本，而拿现金这一块的话，那么现在式和未来式这一块，我们如何去把它这个有机的这个去处理？这是一个。另外一个呢，我们在实践当中也还看到一个，就是作为媒体，我们在结合这个生态扶贫的这个采访和调查当中也看到一些情况，就是地方资源与生态之间也有矛盾。这个矛盾就表现在，就是说，一边要有生态，一边的话呢，你就必须要对一些什么水坝呀、矿山都要必须把它要关闭的关闭，炸的炸掉。但是呢，这样对扶贫这一块又造成了一个实际的这么一个阻碍。所以有关这些问题我想请刘主任在 跟我们谈一谈，谢谢。
报一下你的媒体。
我是那个美国全美电视台。
好，
谢谢。
咱们是在同一时间去年的，同一地点，相同的2位人提了相同的问题。
对，没错。但是今年有点变化，有点时间。
All America TV. Last year today, I raised a question on ecology-based poverty alleviation, and throughout the year, we have seen some good practices. For example, we had a forum on finding ways to preserve ecology in poor areas, but we also see that there is still a gap between what's on the ground and our expectations, and the balance between addressing the cause and addressing the symptoms. For example, ecology-based poverty alleviation is actually targeting addressing the root causes of poverty. But if you use cash, it'll be faster to see results. So how can we strike a balance between immediate interests and long-term interests? Through our interviews and surveys in the past year on ecology-based poverty alleviation, we also find a conflict between the preservation of ecological environment and the utility of natural resources and local resources. Because if you want to preserve the ecology, sometimes we have to close down or remove some water dams and mining and mines, which cause an actual impediment to poverty alleviation. So what's your comment on this conflict? Thank you.
这个
Well, in the places you mentioned, there are heavily polluting projects such as mines, and these mines have to be shut down. To be honest, shutting down these mines will not be detrimental to the poverty alleviation efforts, because the benefits of the mines are not being shared by the local people, especially those poor people. And they will suffer from the consequences of these mines. So I totally agree that these mines and polluting projects have to be shut down. That's why we call it ecologic poverty alleviation or ecology-based poverty alleviation. So on the one hand, we have to complete the poverty alleviation drive, and we also have to think about the sustainability of our poverty alleviation, because we talk about the integrated development of economic, social, environmental, and other areas of our development. And the local environment is very hospitable to the local people, and the environment is very fragile and being destroyed. And the Grain for Green drive is also a part of our poverty alleviation process. And the forest keepers are those people who are registered impoverished people, and there are over 100,000 people doing this kind of forest keeping work. In Shanxi province, every year a significant part of the poverty alleviation funding is being used for the forestation in the local area. It's like you are fighting two wars on the same battlefield. That is poverty alleviation and ecological protection. So this practice is being replicated across the country, and important achievements have been made. So generally speaking, poverty alleviation and ecological protection are not at odds with each other, and this is part and parcel of our integrated development. And we will continue to be committed to this strategy. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。我是中俄头条的记者。刘主任，那个中俄两个国家高度重视扶贫减贫的工作。那你认为中俄边境合作可以有效帮助两国边境地区解决扶贫问题吗？谢谢。
This China-Russia headline, both China and Russia attach great importance to poverty alleviation and reduction. Do you think that border cooperation between our two countries will help poverty alleviation in the border areas of our countries? Thank you.
你这个问题挺好。
This is a good question. China and Russia are good neighbors and friends, and both of us are great nations in the world. The friendship between our two boards is the welfare of both peoples. We hope to see the mutual development of both sides in order to add to the income of both peoples at the border areas, and also to offer equal trading and business. I heard that the business at the border areas are doing great and help alleviate poverty for both peoples, and also the stability between the borders also help improve people's lives and help people make money. Stability are different from the wars. The people are leading happy life there. I'm happy with this. And your question is good. Also, because President Xi initiated the Belt and Road Initiative, is also in accordance with this.